may I now invite our distinguished panelists, handpicked specifically to address this topic, to the stage. They are not just showing you some slides, they are really talking about the expertise and sharing their experience. And if any one of you are really inspired by what you're hearing from them, I hope that you can catch them after the plenary discussion. So may I invite the first panelist, Dr. Shi Feng, Executive Director, Division of Technology Cooperation, China ASEAN Environmental Cooperation Center, Ministry of Ecology and Environment, China, 中华人民共和国生态环境部，石峰博士，请上台。Mr. Sanjay Agarwal, Director, Procurement Policy, Department of Expenditure, Ministry of Finance, Government of India. Welcome to the stage. Mr. Sasi de Silva, Low Carbon Mobility Entrepreneur from Sri Lanka. Mr. Wirapon Altasakun, Signify Philips Lighting, Thailand. Okay, I'm going to see Mr. Wirapon. Okay, but I think we can take a seat. Thank you very much, panelists. Jenna, we're going to call for Mr. Wirapon, right? Okay. We search for him. But for time being, shall not keep the audience waiting. We'll have our panelists to do a round of introduction on what they do in their role and why they're here. So, Dr. Shi Feng.
Thank you, Hong Xin. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very delighted to be invited to this very good, very beautiful city to attend this good conference. And thank you so much for CSN to organize this conference, actually. I'm going to say I am also from another CSN. Actually, I'm from China ASEAN Environmental Cooperation Center. I mean, it's another CSN Cooperation Center, and which is a branch of the Ministry of Ecology and Environmental Ministry of People's Republic of China. And my CSN, I mean CAEC actually, it's the role of CAEC was the support branch of Chinese Ministry of Ecology and Environmental. And what the major task of CAEC was build the bridge of environmental cooperation between China and the ASEAN countries. I think that's the first reason I came here. And the second reason is actually we have some very close cooperation between the China government, mostly the environmental ministry, and the UNEP. I think that's another reason I came here. And actually, in this session, I'll talk much about the Chinese rules of the game, our Chinese policy to encourage the green consumption.
好，谢谢。Mr. Sanjay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sanjay Agarwal. I work for Ministry of Finance, Government of India. In my current role, I'm responsible for the procurement policies for the Government of India. And just to give an idea, India procures typically around $600 billion of public procurement annually, which comes almost 30% of the GDP of the country. And the idea is that how to use a procurement beyond a transactional tool. The kind of the money which is spent on the procurement, the taxpayers' money, can be used for many strategic purposes. I just want to show and also to learn about the efforts made by us and should be made by us by using this as a strategic tool for sustainability. And for us, the sustainability is beyond environment. Sustainability to the environment, social, and even the economic sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sasi?
A very good afternoon to you all. My name is Sasi Silva. I'm an entrepreneur and an academic from Sri Lanka with a background of with automotive engineering. I've been developing electric vehicles for over 6 years now, converting tuk-tuks to electric, developing electric bicycles, and now I have taken up this project on manufacturing an electric car as well. So hopefully, with my experience, I will be able to give you some insights on what the Sri Lankan government has been doing in order to reach their sustainability goals and to promote sustainable transportation in Sri Lanka, and how we as entrepreneurs and researchers can benefit from that.
Okay.
Thanks.
And P. Virapon.
Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Virapon Authanskun. I'm the manager of the Signify Lighting University, but former name it is Philips Lighting. I'm in charge of educational activity within organization, competency development, as well as coordinate with the Education Institute for sharing and exchange knowledge among lighting community. And at the same time, I'm the secretary of the Illuminating Engineering Association of Thailand, and I'm the member of many technical committee of the Thai Industrial Standard. So in this part, I work around the standard. Today, I've been here to share with you some of the activity I have attended previously regarding the harmonizing the standard.
So I honestly wish that there are more government people here, because there's a lot of very good content. But I believe that CRZN have recorded this, and hopefully they share it with across the agencies in Thailand. And this particular panel discussion, basically we will, I don't say debate, but rather we will share what are the most critical policy measures government should take to enable low carbon consumption, and of course to the audience, which innovative policy solutions are the most important for changing the rules of game to support low carbon consumption. So now let's begin with, again, Dr. Shifeng, right? Because you have this whole big conversation on 5-year plans, eco-civilization, and implementation of the different instruments. When we ask him the question, how to, what exactly are the kinds of policies that they have deployed, his instant answer was very complex. So I really like to hear it from him, and also from the audience would love to hear what is the China experience with this whole integrated sustainable lifestyle at multiple levels of the policy. So, Doctor, please.
Okay, thank you, Hong Xin.
You have your presentation?
Yeah, can you show my slides, if it is there?
It's out there.
Okay.
Beyond. Okay.
Thank you. Actually, I'm from Chinese Ministry of Environmental. Actually, today I'm going to talk much about the 5 years plan of China. Thank you. Okay, thank you. 看得到。I would say thank you to Janet. Your video is it's very good. It's very useful. Actually, it covers several points I'm going to say today. And about 5 years plan, it's I would say it's the most important policy for Chinese governance. Actually, this plan or this policy, we can call it a mother policy. Actually, between this plan, we have a bunch of maybe hundreds of small policies. That's a framework. And this mother policy, it was drafted by not Ministry of Environment. It was drafted by Chinese NRDC, NDRC, National Development and Reform Committee. Actually, I also have my friend Li Chungen, directly from NDRC. He was also here, here. So if I'm talking something wrong, you can just correct me. And I would say Chinese government was running by a 5 years cycle, and for each 5 years we have a plan for next 5 years actually. Right now we are in the middle of 13th 5 years plan. The 13th 5 years plan was lasting from 2016 to 2020. And we can see if we compare the 17th with 12th, 11th 5 years plan, we will see the trend of the newer is the greener or more sustainable, I think. And a very new concept we have 5 new concepts bring to this new 5 years plan actually. That's the direct concept of this 17th 5 years plan. Where the first concept is innovative and the innovative development, and the second is the coordinated development, and then is the green and open and the shared development. And following these 5 rules, we have targets for next 5 years. I mean the targets for 2020. And I'll briefly say the target for 2020 in this 5 years plan. You know, in China, in the 5 years plan, they mix by the target and the policy instrument and some other the supporting rules. The target for 2020 is the first one is the GDP development, the economy growth actually. It will be doubled. It will be doubled compared with the year of 2010. And people's income are doubled too. And then the living quality of Chinese people will be much improved. And the social, culture, and civilization also will be much improved. And the next one is for me, it's the most important one, is ecological and the environmental quality very much improved. And then is the governance and the governance ability of Chinese government was improved too. And you know, I'm from the Chinese MEP. Right now is MEE actually. We care much about the green development. And the green development is one basic concept of Chinese new 5 years plan. And it's part 5 of the plan. I have scanned all the documents. It's a very long documents and like 40,000 words. And I scanned the documents and get major points for green development here. I'm going to share with you guys. The first one is we are going to ensure the human and the nature harmony development. And then the next one is the regional, implementing a regional development strategy. And the third one is improve the low carbon and circular development, recycling development, including encourage the new energy automobile. And the fourth one is the comprehensively save and reuse the energy resource and the energy. The fifth is the fifth task. The fifth task is the strengthen the environmental protection and the recovery of the natural environment. And the last one is the build ecology safety shield. That's a major task listed in the 5 years Chinese 5 years plan actually. Each one is not only a sentence, it covers some contents to support this the policy title, these bullets. And then under this, I mean, at the beginning I say it's a mother policy framework actually. Under this framework, we have enacted a bunch of policies to support this one. That's I'm going to show in my first slides. I have 20 slides here, but Janet only want me to show 5 of them. So that's the first I'm going to show. The policy, under the mother policy framework, we say we will have the 5-year plan for each subfield. For example, for the protection of ecology and environment, we have the 13 5-year plan too. Actually, that's what's drafted by Chinese MEE, and it's one important sub 5-year plan. We also have some 5-year plan like agriculture, industrial, for everything under this big framework. And I will say another important policy was the consumption, because today we talk with the consumption. I have bring several policies documents as example here. I'm going to show you guys. The first one is the consumption, right? Yeah, that's what's drafted by the NDRC. And this document is also very long, has several parts, and it contains the contents about the reduce the packaging waste, reduce the consumption, reduce the green waste, reduce the energy, and the financial policy to support the green products manufacture, and like building some e-labeling system, and tax inception policy. It covers all the policies associated to green consumption actually. And then I'll have another important example, which is the Chinese made to 2025. Actually, it's the plan for Chinese industry development for next 5 or 10 years actually. In this plan or this policy, the green manufacture, the green industry was very much concerned in this document, and I cannot touch too much details because I have only 10 minutes. And another one will be the greening the agriculture in China. It was not shown here, and what I also want to talk about is the supply chain, promoting the supply chain, the innovation and the implementation of supply chain in China. In this, the green supply chain concept was also incorporated in this document. It was encouraged to make some green supply chain policy. And actually, in my delegation, I also have one delegate from the Chinese Guangdong Green Suppliers Society, and later he can talk about some green supply chain policy and instruments. Yeah, I cannot touch all the policies, but I'm going to show one example at the end. Oh, that's another example I want to say, but it's a very detailed example. For example, in the Chinese 5-year plan, we say we are going to encourage the new energy vehicle production and the associated commerce. And actually, in the past 5 years, we say the new energy vehicle was increasing the production, and selling was all increasing very, very rapidly. And in China, if you play with new energy vehicles, like you are producing the new energy car, electricity bicycle, you will have so much policies. That's an example. You have so many policies. If you play this game in China, you can do some research and check this kind of policies. You will be very beneficial, got benefits from these policies. That's one example to the rules of game to encourage the people to turn to the low carbon economy, and that's also the Chinese policy to encourage the the new energy vehicle, actually the electric automobile and bicycle. Right now in China, the low carbon lifestyle and the industrial was very much encouraged. Actually, if you take some research, you will find so many policies were supporting this kind of thing. And actually, I think this was a very good trend for Chinese economy. We say in the past 20, 30 years, we have some problems of high discharge or high carbon emission issue in the economy. Now, I think it was turning low carbon, and it's becoming low carbon and more greening. Thank you.
Well, it's impressive, but I just have one question for you. How do the Chinese government actually enroll the businesses into action? I mean, it sounds so simple, right? Read the rules and somebody practice the rules. Is that the way they work, or how do the Chinese government enroll the consumers as well as the business into this action to support your action moving forward to your 2020 plan, right?
Actually, if you have a factory in China, you can easily get this kind of benefits, the policy benefit from your local government. That's all the policy from the central government. And we have province, we have counties, we have cities level. And the policy has much details on the bottom. If you have some kind of factory, and you can ask ask in the local government, you can get all the paths how to get the benefits from these policies.
I see. So there is an incentive.
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's all incentives.
Okay. So there is an incentive to motivate the businesses to take their action. No penalty. No fierce enforcement.
We do have penalties, yeah, especially in my ministry. But I'm going to talk that maybe in another conference, not today.
Okay. So there is some, soft and hard practices to actually first motivate. Then after motivation not working, and then exercise some penalty. Okay, that's interesting. Well, moving on from the Chinese rules of the game, we're going to now hear from the India experience with the sustainable public procurement. So like what the China side said that, okay, they're going to keep their manufacturing green, they're going to keep the supply chain green, they're going to keep a lot of things green. How do they actually also exercise their procurement or a sustainable procurement policy? Maybe we can learn and hear from the India side. And Mr. Sanjay, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So sustainable public procurement, and perhaps we may use the word SPP for the purpose of convenience. Let's take a step back. When we fix the goals that we must consume less, it should be sustainable consumption. The obvious question which comes from the general public is, why should I? Why should I buy costly items? Even if these items are available, if the manufacturer claim is okay, from the supplier or the vendor perspective, why I should manufacture them? If the market is available for them. So these are the obvious questions which has come. With this as a context, considering the enormous power which the government is having in terms of the procurement, and I just mentioned in a country like India it comes out to be 600 billion, and the World Bank estimates says that globally public procurement is in excess of $10 trillion per annum. The answer is, let's harness this enormous government powers, which is in excess of $10 trillion, to answer the questions which the both suppliers as well as the consumers are having. And for this exact purpose, we can use the public procurement beyond a transactional thing and as a strategic tool. How we can do it? We can develop the market. let's take an example. Out of the $10 trillion, suppose the government decide that will just buy 1% item which are only sustainable. That gives a market of a $10 billion straight away. Now the answer is to harness this market. Harness this market, first government has to take a decision to make the message clear. And once the manufacturers are aware that a market of a $10 billion is available, they will start investing the money in these projects. And in order to map both the consumers, we'll be needing an essential thing, which is the eco-labeling. That will give the assurance to both the parties that once they are paying money for this, yes, it is worth and it is really sustainable. With this as a small background, I would just like to give few of the objectives, few of the steps which India has taken in last couple of years on this direction, and maybe I will spend few minutes that what we are proposing to do in the next few years. One, in any case, SPP is one of the SDG goals 2030, so for which we all are signatory. So it's very clearly stated in goal 12.7 that SPP, every country has to follow the SPP in accordance with their national policies. So while apparently it may look as if it's very lenient, but we have to take into the factor that each country has a very peculiar requirement. And maybe as a first step, some flexibility is required. From the Indian perspective, two things are there. Firstly, we have already amended our procurement rules in last couple of years to include all the essential items related to this. Our procurement rule very specifically mentioned that one of the evaluation criteria could be our environment. So you need not to buy only to the L1, but which is not matching to our specification. Our rules also provide that we can use the life cycle costing as one of the parameter. I will be giving few more examples on this just to demonstrate or reinforce my point. For a small office item like air conditioner, the government of India has already specified that in case you are looking to buy air conditioner for your chamber, you cannot buy less than particular star rating. So that means you are ensuring the efficiency, energy efficiency which is coming with it. And this is irrespective of the cost. No one can say my air conditioner is half of the cost. It doesn't matter. You have to buy of a particular star rating. And this is there for last 5 years. And this will be keep on increasing. Just one more example about the development of market. Few years back, we have decided to work on the LED. The result is the prices have come down to 1/3, which was 3 years back. And in the process, we have saved $2.3 billion only on one particular item. And CO2 reduction of 32 million tons. And the figures are as recent as 7th September 2018. Second, so with this as a background, of course, just to give more things, our rules does contain thing about the recycling, electronic procurement, which is considered as the essential thing to measure, and also about the buyback arrangement. Just to give one more example on the electronic procurement, currently India is doing the electronic procurement worth $300 billion per annum, which is quite a big number. The question may come, so fine, so what's next? India is a system which is where the decentralized system of the procurement work. Broad policies are given by the Ministry of Finance, and the procurement and some tweaking of the procurement policies are permitted by the individual procurement entities. All of the efforts which I have just given are scattered across the ministries, and they are just indicative. In the March of this year, March 2018, Government of India has decided to constitute a task force on sustainable public procurement. This is housed within Ministry of Finance, and I happens to be the secretary of this task force. The task force job, are 2-3 main jobs are, one, firstly to catalog all the efforts which is being done across the governments in the various federal or sub-federal structures, and to catalog them so that the knowledge which is gained by the one particular entity can be shared by the another entity. Two, there could be many practices which may not be happening in the country and may be happening internationally. To understand what is worked as internationally and to incorporate in our rules or maybe in our actions. And based on these two things, we also propose to make an action plan for our future. And the task force job will not stop at the action plan. We'll be also selecting at least 5 to 10 items. We'll work them for next 1 year and effectively demonstrate both within the government and to the market that the sustainability can work. So this is the roadmap for next 3 years. So maybe I would like to stop here and we'll be ready to answer anything at any point of time. Yeah. Thank you.
5 to 10 items, how do you define that 5 to 10 items that you have, that the task force look into, that you think it is what is needed by the consumers or by the industry?
Yeah. So these 5 to 10 items are based on 2-3 parameters. One, this already sustainability is being done in the large number of the countries, and there are certain low-hanging fruits which has been identified across the globe. The typical low-hanging fruits are the office stationery, IT equipment, building material. That could be one set. Another set could be to select the items which are having very high impact on the environment. Mm-hmm. So based on that, we've already prepared a long list of around 20 items. We are working on them, and then we'll, based on the further research and refinement means more to understand about their impact, government purchases, availability of the projects, alternate projects in the market, the cost implication, will make a shortlist of 5 to 6 items.
I see. And other than, pardon my ignorance, but other than India, who have practiced this SPP, as you mentioned that, they have this SDG SPP guideline that everybody have to comply. So do you know of any other countries that have already successfully deployed this?
So SDG has been, SPP is already being practiced by many countries, especially in the Western countries, Europe and American, USA. But even in this region, we have a very good examples like Japan, Korea, even China. What I really wish to say in case of India, also this SPP is being followed for the last many, many years. Only thing we are more formalizing the same. Just to give one more example, just to add on what I wish to say, sustainability typically has a 3 component. One is related to the environment. One is related to the social sustainability, where we keep a focus on our weaker sections, small industries, startups, so to support them through the procurement process. And third is to also not to really evaluate projects based on their initial cost, but overall cost that include the initial as well as the operational cost. On a third point, I just want to give example. Recently, Government of India has floated a tender which is worth $600 million. And we have decided that we'll use not L1 as a criteria, but LCC as a criteria. And we paid, the contract was awarded not to the L1, but the person who was able to show substantial energy saving. And we have paid upfront $100 million extra. You will agree, if you see globally, we won't find many examples where the government has paid upfront $100 million extra for a particular item.
Okay, yeah. That's interesting. I'm not sure whether if Thailand have also exercised this or other Asia Pacific countries other than what you have mentioned, Japan, China. So I think it's good to keep you on the panel to further pursue on this conversation in case any of the countries is interested in this conversation. And how long did you take to actually deploy this whole entire SPP?
So as I say, we are already doing it for last 3 years. Yes. The action plan which we are currently working on is likely to be done by 2020 last. So maybe 2 years from now, we'll be coming out with a more formal document.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sanjay. So, since we talk about, touch on the subject on startups, then here I'd like to invite my third panelist, Mr. Sasi, where he very much do a lot of extra work other than being a typical entrepreneur. He basically takes into serious consideration on his kind of work, how it can actually motivate other reps to also take the same kind of action. So Sasi, you're going to be talking very much about how this whole financial instrument going to facilitate the private sector section, and particularly the tuk-tuk, right? Whenever you talk about tuk-tuk, I only think about Thailand having tuk-tuk, so, so this Sri Lanka having this whole tuk-tuk and is actually driven very much by you to drive the change. So please share with the audience on what you've been doing and how this has actually impacted the work that you've been doing in Sri Lanka, please. Do you have slides?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Thanks. So I will start off from where the government signed the Paris Agreement and give you a little idea about what's been happening since then. So after that, there were a lot of policy changes happening in different sectors. So I will focus on the transportation sector. In the Ministry of Environment, in their action plans, it clearly mentions that we have to increase the usage of electric vehicles. We have to introduce electric buses to our public transportation system, and of course convert the existing tuk-tuk fleet into electricity. If I talk about the first point where it deals with importation of vehicles, now earlier in Sri Lanka we had a huge tax imposed for vehicle imports that was around 200%, and since recently they introduced this new tariff system where you impose tax based on the engine capacity, size of the engine, if it's an engine car. If it's electric, it's based on the motor power, and more tax incentives goes into the electric category. And also when you do that, people are encouraged to go for small engine cars, for example, hybrid vehicles. Hybrid vehicle will have a smaller engine, so people are encouraged to buy more hybrids and electrics, and because of this, the fuel cars are slowly phasing out. And on the second topic about introducing electric buses, now from this year's budget there was a 500 million rupee allocation, and the Ceylon Transportation Board is carrying out this pilot project, and they have selected this selected a route and doing some testings with electric buses and hoping to introduce electric buses throughout the country in the future. And the third one that I said was about converting tuk-tuks into electric, where my work gets involved. And that topic is quite sensitive, tax sensitive, I should say, because when I started my project, when I imported these motors and lithium-ion batteries to build the prototype, the tax that I had to pay was almost around 50% of the component price. So once I build this whole conversion kit, the cost or the selling price would be quite unreasonable for the tuk-tuk drivers, because they can't really afford, because tuk-tuk is a low-cost vehicle, so you have to have a reasonable price for these conversions. And that was quite apparent when Ministry of Environment, they called in for tenders from the private sector for these tuk-tuk conversions, and none of the tenders went through because the price quoted was too high. Then they realized that there has to be some fiscal policy changes in order to go ahead and to meet their sustainability goals. And that's when the Ministry of Industry and Commerce and Ministry of Finance got together, and they came up with this taxation scheme where they give tax incentives based on local value addition. So one idea is to promote electric vehicles, and at the same time they want to promote local manufacturing as well. In Sri Lanka we have vehicle assembly plants, we have vehicle component manufacturing, and we have projects like what I'm doing, the electric conversions. So with this scheme, for example, for electric vehicles, if you're adding 60% local value addition, you will get, for the first year, the payable tax is about 5%. And as you move on throughout the years, the taxable amount will also increase. So that way, the business have the potential to slowly grow, because at the initial stages, the taxable amount is lower. And as it grows, once it's established, the taxable amount slowly increases. So that way, the government will also benefit, and the industry can also grow. So that is a good initiative. And in that scheme also, they're trying to promote electric vehicles and hybrids more, because they have categorized it, fuel vehicles, hybrids, and electric. And you get the highest amount of tax reductions for electric vehicles. And at the same time, from the Ministry of Environment side, for the consumers, they have come up with this low-interest loan scheme to encourage tuk-tuk drivers to move on to electric. So they can easily go for this loan and buy the conversion kit. And this will not really add an additional expense to their monthly income, because running with electricity saves them money. So they can easily, that saving can compensate for their monthly installment. In fact, even after paying the installment, there will be some additional savings. And with this conversion kit that I'm introducing, it has a return of investment of 2 years, and after that, they will have a $1,200 annual saving. Before I conclude, I would like to draw your attention to this new tariff system introduced by the Sri Lankan Electricity Board as well. That is again to promote electric vehicles in Sri Lanka, and that is called the time of day tariff, where you charge for your electricity based on the time you consume it. Basically, if I give an example, from 11 p.m. to 6 in the morning, they have the lowest charging rate per unit. So if you're an owner of electric vehicles, so what they expect you to do is to charge your vehicle during that time and do your driving during the daytime. That makes sense because the electricity demand is lowest during the night time. So even if all the electric vehicle owners plug in their vehicles at that time, there will be no additional demand for the electricity board. So that makes good sense. That is actually something that really working in Sri Lanka at the moment. Thank you.
Isn't it encouraging to hear this from the entrepreneur who actually helped the whole entire economy to change, and also to lower the carbon, consumption. I mean, lower the whole, or touch on the subject on lower carbon economy. And maybe this question very much relate to specifically to you as an entrepreneur. Is like you mentioned that you actually have a tuk-tuk and then you try to convert it, and then the cost is very high. And that was how you got started as a startup. Or you're already in the business?
I'm not already in the business, so I'm still finalizing my prototype. So for the prototype, I had to pay the taxes. So once I converted the unit, the whole cost was almost nearly the cost of the tuk-tuk. So because of the taxable amount, came somewhere around 50% of the cost of the components.
I see. But are you now running the business? Or?
Not yet. So I'm talking with the Ministry of Industry and Commerce on getting tax concessions on the components that I'm going to import. And it's going all right for the time being, yeah. Okay,
that's interesting. Because what I'm hearing is that, you have the demand of, transforming the country in terms of like low carbon emission. At the same time, there's this young gentleman who is able to solve the problem and provide the solution, and also on top of that, motivate actually the government to rethink the rules of the games, right?
Yes.
Okay, it's very encouraging. So here, going on, as I've heard from Mr. Wirupon, that he talked about harmonizing standards, or harmonizing the rules. So, with that, I really very much want to hear, because when you talk about rules, right, it's always like very competing, very competitive. But I'm going to hear from him in terms of how he, in business, is actually addressing this subject on harmonizing the rules, or harmonizing the regional standards on sustainable lighting.
Okay, thank you. I have been here. I have
a slide?
Slides. Yes.
Okay.
Turn the screen to slide.
You can look down.
Yeah. Okay. I've been here to share the experience about the harmonizing standard, particularly for sustainable lighting. Because in the past few years, I have seen many activities around this topic, and then I can get some experience and to share with you. But the topic is very specific to the lighting, and I'm only expertise in the lighting. So first of all, I would like to share you how much lighting contribute into the sustainability matter. In 2006, lighting contribute around 19% of the electricity consumption, and let's consider the whole product life cycle, from the manufacturer to the transportation, install, usage until end of life disposal, the most impact will be taking place during the usage and contribute around 19% in 2006. From there, if we do not think, we expect within 2030, the number of life points will be increased by 35%. This is quite huge, but lucky from that time, we have more efficient innovation. We all know it's about LED. Because emerging of LED, nowadays the contribution of the lighting can be decreased to around 15%. And we projected within the 2030, the contribution will be reduced to only 8%. But how? How LED can do that? The answer is clear. It's about LED. A few years ago, I attended the Asia Pacific workshop on energy efficiency. 90% of the content will talk around the LED. Even to save energy is not about the product. It's about product plus design plus how we use it, manage and control. But 90%, everybody talk about LED. So it's clear that LED is a simplest solution. And nowadays, there are many proof points that by simple switch from conventional lighting to LED, we can save up to 40–50% easily. But it's not good enough. We cannot make use of the LED capability. To make use of it maximum, we have to connect them together. By connecting them together, we will get very useful information transfer within the network. I would take some example from the Jakarta street lighting. Jakarta have installed over 90,000 LED street light, which is connected. By this system, they can control, they can monitor, they can let the system run automatically. They can adapt the lighting level. That means they can consume less energy during some periods which not demand for high light level. And they even know what happened with each light point. If some point fail or it's turned on improperly, they can manage it on time. It can help to save energy up to 70%. And these cases happen many places around the world nowadays. But this case sound like for professional segment. Come back to the consumer segment, which contribute much more energy consumption. In this segment, in the consumer segment, standard will play more important role because standard is the baseline for the consumer to choose the product. But let's consider the standard for LED. To make the standard for LED is not easy. Why? The first thing, LED standard is emerging. Currently, the standard for LED is not covered in all aspects. Even there are available standards, many standards available currently, but it's not unified. For example, if we refer to one standard, we have to refer to another standard. Let's say if I talk about lifetime of LED, not even one single standard can give the idea how to check, how to test the lifetime of LED. They're related to many standards. 2 weeks ago, I have the public lecture. There are 40 people attend that lecture. It is about the LED standard, especially. But I think only 2 or 3 people can get what I mean, can link, can understand what the relation between each LED standard. So to make the LED standard is not easy. And even technically, some LED standard is in place, but it's just a draft. The process after that will take much longer time. For example, it's happened here in Thailand. As the technical committee, I draft the LED standard, 8 standards, for almost 3 years ago. But now none of them have been published, still have somewhere in the air. So it is another issue. And Next is about the market acceptance. This is not specific to only LED products, but in any case, if we want to raise up the bar for the higher performance product standard, there will be always the feedback from the market, because usually higher performance will mean higher price, and the market will feel negative on this. So to make it enforced and fully success, we have to gain involvement from the market as well. And last, it's about the surveillance mechanism. This is also a weak point. Most of the time when we have the standard in place, but it cannot fully enforce. Why? Because surveillance mechanism sometimes is weak, and it happens all around the world. Last month, Illuminating Engineering Association nominated someone to attend the BRICS workshop in China. There are 5 countries share this idea, and we have some common problem. The low quality products have been imported to that country, particularly the product from China. Sorry, I have to mention that because everybody say the same. But I don't want to only specific for the product from China. I would like to highlight, actually it is the low quality product, no matter where it comes from. Why they can be imported into those countries? Not because they don't have the standard. They have standard, but they don't have a strong surveillance mechanism. Let's say for some products, what I found personally in the market, they compliance with the standard at the beginning. But once we're sampling from the market and test again, it's not compliant anymore. It always happens in the market. So this is the weak point. And then what is my conclusion? Even it sounds that to make the standard is something very difficult, but it doesn't mean that we should passively take action or we do nothing. But in contrast, we have to do it now. But why? How? The first thing, we have to make it simple, to simplify it. The standard, particularly for energy efficiency, they don't need to be so complicated. If we aim to only energy efficiency, we just set up the simple performance criteria, which is already available in the IEC, international standard. We can adopt from those standards. And it also set up the measure for every standard to be tested on the same baseline and give comprehensive information to the consumer. Then they can choose the right product for themselves. Second, harmonization. Because if we consider ASEAN country, single country will be very small market. And while some product like LED is for mass, it's produced as a mass, for mass market. So if we consider single country as a small market, is not economy of scale for the manufacturer to produce unique product for each specific countries. But if we can harmonize the standard, that means we open up the opportunity for consumer to choose product from anywhere, no matter where it's come from, no matter what technology it is. If it just comply to the minimum performance requirement, it is okay, it should be accepted. And this will drive the manufacturer to improve their products quality as well, because they have to compete from many other manufacturers in the region. So at the end, the consumer will gain the benefit by getting the better product with the affordable price. And last but not least, all these mechanisms will not work, will not be success if we just consider only the standard or regulation. It has to be a holistic approach, not only the standard and regulation activity, but we have to consider on supporting policy, maybe from government to drive its and finance and financial mechanism, because some innovation, high efficiency system may need high upfront investment. Someone have initiative to do, but they don't have money. Where the money come from? We have to consider on this. And also monitoring and verification enforcement is also about surveillance mechanism. And environmental style management and health is also have to be considered. Then we can be success to run the sustainable program. This is all I want to share. Thank you.
ขอบคุณค่ะ You know, it sounds so easy. Just do all these and then things will happen, right?
Make it simple. Just make it simple. Then it can be happen.
Okay. You brought up one very critical point where you mentioned that you drafted 8 policies or 8 rules or 8 guidelines.
8 standards.
8 standards.
In product standards.
Product standard. And tamai, as in like why it is not published?
It's beyond. Actually, it's beyond my responsibility. My responsibility is only consider and review on the technical part. It's past that stage already, but now it's under the further process.
I see. Sorry to ask such a sensitive question, but it always gets me thinking that, you know, rules and, you know, there are a lot of effort that has been put in to structure a policy or to design a policy. And at the end of the day, the policy are not at the optimal usage. It could be many reasons. So in my panel, I have, from China to India, Sri Lanka, and of course Thailand, and of course I call myself the ASEANA. Huh? So we have very interesting sharing, and we purposely cater for time for questions, and we have a series of questions that came in through the Slido program, where I would like to invite my panelists to answer some of these questions. So coming specifically to China, Dr. Sifeng, there's this question: with the One Belt Initiative, what are the Chinese policy to ensure any environmental impact from the project will be mitigated in ASEAN? So this question is pretty interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Itailu. So would you like to?
Thank you for the question.
There's also one more question, but you take this first.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, I'll take this first. I think that's a very good question, and you are asking. I know who asked this question, but you are asking the right person actually. I was from CAEC, another CISN center, and our center was leading on the One Belt One Road, the environmental cooperation and issue, and we are leading this kind of thing. And I remember last time we have the One Belt the Belt and Road. We call it a Belt and Road Initiative, not One Belt One Road actually. Last time we have that conference talking about the Belt and Road, the greenization or greening the Belt and Road, and the conference in China. I remember Isabel is also there, right? Yeah. Actually, that worry it's not a new issue. From the beginning of the Belt and Road Initiative was released, it was already considered in that initiative, and our President Xi Jinping, he talked so much in several locations about what the Belt and Road will be. It will be a green one, and for the environmental issue, I think the first. They are worrying about after the Belt and Road Initiative was released, and so many Chinese factories and Chinese industries was going out to the ASEAN countries, and yeah, that happened. We see so many Chinese enterprises has their projects build their factories in ASEAN countries actually. And first, I would say this kind of enterprises go to the ASEAN country, they are relatively big. We have some small one, maybe with lower level technique, they are still in China. They have some, they are higher, they have bigger scales, they have higher technology, they have the ability to go out actually. And when they come out from China to ASEAN countries, first they must obey the laws of the local government of ASEAN countries. That's the first point. If they do not obey the laws here, they will be punished, no doubt. And if somewhere there is no standards, discharge standards or laws or regulation for this kind of these factories or industries, they must obey the standards, follow the standards of China. That's the one request. And I have talked with the enterprises several times in China and in Laos, where we request the Chinese Ministry of Environmental, the Ecology and Environment requested them to obey the laws, and if there is not obey the laws in local government, if there is no standard, follow the Chinese standard. That's first. And then we are building some platforms between China and ASEAN countries. Actually, in this July, we set up an environmental cooperation office in Cambodia. In Cambodia, where the Chinese Ministry of Environment and the Cambodian Ministry of Environment, we built a cooperation office in Cambodia, and that's a platform. Actually, I will send people to them. Actually, while I was in charge of that office, I will send people to them, and one of their responsibilities was watching the guys, the Chinese factories and the Chinese industries. They will not do something wrong, and then we are building some supporting systems like the information sharing and the big data sharing platform. That's the target of that platform is supporting the communication between Chinese government, between Chinese government, ASEAN country government, and the public, and we can share all the infos on that platform. If there is some platforms, the Chinese government will be informed and do some action. Actually, I think that's what I'm going to say about this issue. And I know there is some problems. Some people worry about the environmental issue of the Belt and Road Initiative, and the Chinese Ministry of Environment will take several actions and continuously to make the impacts lower and lower. Actually.
Thank you, Dr. Sifeng. Specifically, this question, Sanjay, I think this is should be very close to heart of yours, as this question came from somebody from the audience that says, how do you see the link from domestic sustainable procurement and possible export from India to expanding green market overseas?
Fine. So surely, if you ask me, the question is slightly ahead of time. But in any case, once the market got developed, and because of the benefits or the encouragement given by us to the sustainable projects, there's a scope to get the items exported to the other countries. But if you ask me very specifically, this is slightly ahead of time as far as we are considered.
Okay. So whoever who asked this question, get a name card of his, and later on can continue your follow-up. Okay, and definitely we can't miss out this question. I think here is very interesting. There's this question that says, has share of lightning decline in absolute terms? Has share of lightning decline? Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure what this question means. Is a share of lighting. I understand it is the, you mean the contribution on the electricity consumption of lighting. If you mean that, in 2030 that I mentioned, we project that the contribution will be around 8%. But it doesn't mean it's decline. It is a positive way, because that means lighting consumes less and less energy. because we have more efficient system. I could say system because not only the light bulb itself, but it has to be included into the control system as well. So actually, it's decline sound negative, but actually this numbers they're positive.
Okay, thank you. Sasi, I'm not sure if this question is serving this answer serves the question that was being asked. But again, as I said, in case it's not exactly, please catch off all my panelists, okay? Sasi, I think there is a very interesting question here. How does Sri Lanka produce its electricity, and how did it conduct a study on actual CO2 emission? Is this okay for you?
Yeah.
Yeah? And, the actual CO2 emissions saved by shifting to EVs. I still have two questions for you. Huh?
Well, in Sri Lanka, we have hydropower, then coal and diesel. Hydropower accounts for about 30%, and rest come from diesel and coal. I have done an LCA study, particularly on the electric tuk-tuk conversion, a life cycle analysis, and from that, I have found that per conversion, there is about 65% reduction compared to a gasoline tuk-tuk. And in Sri Lanka, we have about 1.3 million tuk-tuks on the road. It is the second highest fleet in Sri Lanka after motorbikes. So, so again, from the LCA, we found that if you convert half the fleet there, the annual carbon dioxide reduction would reach 1 million tons a year.
Okay. And you mentioned that you have not started your business, right? But is there a conversation that you've been discussing about how to incentivize tuk-tuk drivers to switch to electric tuk-tuk?
Yes, that was the low-interest loan scheme that was introduced by the Ministry of Environment.
Okay.
So basically, they're giving out loans to the drivers, a very low-interest scheme. So they're going to recommend the local banks to offer them the low-interest loans and with the guarantee of the Ministry of Environment. And as I said, of course, they can pay off the monthly installments from the savings they make by running with electricity.
Okay. And, probably this question should be general, where any one of you can jump in to answer. Governments select between economic development and the protection of environment. And many times, economic development wins. How can we influence these more? I think this one everybody can answer, right? Not only the panelists' answers. So maybe I can start off with my panelists first, all right? Government selects between economic development and the protection of environment. And many times, economic development wins. How can we influence this win? Or how can we influence this more?
Let me say from the SPP perspective, there's no conflict because we are really trying to develop the market and perhaps have more economic development with the new projects which are also environment friendly. So if we see purely from the SPP perspective, there's absolutely no conflict is there.
Okay, Sanjay, thank you.
I'll say this is an easy and hard question actually. I'll tell you guys a fact. I think that problems in China that really exist, and maybe before 5 years ago, the economy wins. Maybe right now, I'm pretty sure the environmental will win. Actually, for the last 5 years, you guys may know the Chinese economy policy was turning, was come to the turning point actually. And before 5 years ago, maybe the economy growth is the first choice, and then actually right now, you guys may know may know from the news in China we shut down so many factories for the past 2 years, and I was also in that. We say it is some enforcement activity for the last 5 years. I was sending to some very far away villages and check the small factories and shut it down. We, you know, for right now the economy growth or we call it low quality economy growth cannot win anymore. Right now right now actually the policy was turning, and we say if the people want to influence the policy choice, I think that's the I want to say unfortunately that the power is not that powerful, it's weak. You know, why the Chinese policy was turning? Because the environmental problem has been so serious and everybody see that. So everybody was awake after 5 years ago, and then the policy goes to the turning point. Yeah.
Okay, so that's China.
That's what I think that's what happened in China.
Okay. Sasi, you have anything to share on this?
Well, I think it's about finding the point where you have to compromise between industrial sustainability and saving the environment. So I think from the government side, there is a lot to do. Again, from the things that I said, I explained about the policies that came in. So I guess it's about keeping the system functioning like this with the minimum impact to the environment. So I guess the government will have to collaborate with the private sector, discuss and develop the relevant policies for the industries to sustain, and at the same time to save the environment as well. I guess things like this that we're doing now will set a good ground in the future to create policies as such.
We actually don't have much time, huh? We can't see too far future. P. Willapong, any input for this?
Okay. I do really believe in what our former king have taught us about the sufficiency economy. Okay, we do not need to be a rich man, and at the same time we do not need to be a poor man. Just feel sufficient. We earn and we spend on whatever we can afford and feel sufficient. By this way, just sit it into our heart, into our next generation, and expand to others. By this way, then we can balance both economy and our happiness, which also include the environment. Yeah.
ขอบคุณค่ะ There are still some questions that we probably have no time to answer because time is almost up. But particularly to this question, as a moderator, I'd like to answer because I think this whole big conversation about influencing government. You look at the many events that are being held in your country. How many government leaders actually sit in the room and really pay attention to see what they wanted to see, or to see that there is this whole huge opportunities. I remember picking up a low carbon economy YouTube video. I saw that, they talk about with all this pain and problems, it actually opens up this whole huge conversation on opportunity, economic opportunities, on how we possibly can change and transform businesses to help the country to cater what we call a future for the future. So I hope we end this plenary with a good end, where you can catch all my panelists once they get down from the stage. Thank you so much and have a good time.